We know that, I think it's in 2050, it'll be about 1 billion people over 65 years old, more than we are today. Then we already know today that we have about 400 million incontinent people in the world. And we also know that the prevalence of incontinence increases with age. It really puts the pressure to the system. And what we see will happen from that is the shift to home care. And that means we also have a shift of care to untrained caregivers. I mean, basically the caregiving relatives. They need support. And when we ask them, that's what they tell us. The other thing happening is, if we have a shift to home care, we also have more resource-intensive cases in institutions, because there you have trained caregivers, but they will have a different, type of workload. If we take a look on how this COVID-19 pandemic have impacted the trends, we don't really see any new trends coming up. We see the ongoing trends, but vastly accelerated by COVID-19. To take the caregiving relative example, you're supposed to take care of a loved one. That's tough to begin with. And then on top of it, you're not supposed to physically meet that person. So the requirements have increased and the trends have been accelerated. How do you preserve the dignity and how do you preserve that human touch of care when this is happening? So we have, rethought and reimagined our way of delivering our services. Digital solutions are already a part of healthcare today. Take blood sugar measurements. What has happened now is that you can actually continuously monitor your curve of blood sugar, which means that you can act on an upward and a downward trend, which is actually both preventive and increases the outcome of care. I really think that we need to be looking way more to prevention than what we have done before. And stretching that even further, wellness, which obviously then comes before, can we in an early stage be more clever, be more successful in keeping people's wellness? We save a lot of work when we then come to treatment. Melanoma is an example where the patient can get a support, taking a photo of a birthmark, asking a question whether this is no issue at all, or if it's come in and we'll check it out. Instead of booking all these appointments, you can actually make the interaction way more quicker. I cannot resist speaking about that we should embrace getting older, because I think it's so much in the society where we should prevent aging, but I would like to turn that around and say it's a great thing being able to get older. It's great, let's embrace it. Now, how can we support that aging would be the right question. An example, when you're a resident in a nursing home, the way it's done in many places today in the world is that they go check and change the absorbent product, whether it needs to be changed or not. And that's an intrusion of your dignity. And if you extend that thinking to caregiving relatives, now all of a sudden you're doing it with your loved one. If we can support them in becoming a more dignified in doing that's a great help to them. The how in addressing these challenges is for everyone to think of the complete continuum of care, which in our world means wellness to begin with, prevention, assessment, then treatment, and then you have care delivery and data monitoring or follow-up. As a senior consumer, being independent, living at your home, wellness can be very important. If you're a resident in a nursing home, wellness might not be the most important thing, but prevention, assessment becomes crucial. Our solution, TENA Identify, is a good example of a position in this continuum of care. TENA Identify is an absorbent product with built-in sensors that the resident in a nursing home uses for 72 hours. After that period, the caregiver in the nursing home gets a pattern, like a report, which is individual for this specific resident. And that's the point, because that allows the nursing home to individually set up a care plan for this resident. direct outcome is that there will be more individualized care, the right products will be used, you're able to also set up a schedule with the right toileting in the right time. And then we have, of course, TENA Smart Care, which is a sensor that you put outside an absorbent product. It sends a signal about the wetness level to a dashboard and a smartphone. So the app will tell you when to consider change and when you don't need to. TENA Smart Care is a range of solutions, really. We have TENA Smart Care for caregiving relatives in a home care setting, and we also have TENA Smart Care for institutions, for professional caregivers. They use the same platform, but they have different front ends. Normally you have more caregiving relatives focusing and taking care of one loved one. In an institutional setting, same system, but then it's almost opposite. You have many residents and you typically have fewer caregivers. So we need to display the information in a different way. What do you do with the data monitoring? Well, it helps you, to begin with, to plan your care in a better way. It may contribute to spending a shorter time in a product which reaches saturation, but also advising the care staff on, you don't need to run here and do this now. This resident is all fine. That's in its first step. But again, looking ahead in time, what if then we could support with recommendations on when it's likely to have a successful toileting? And what would happen if you extend the line even further and you apply artificial intelligence on it? Again, not replacing the caregiver, but empowering them with recommendations. You can actually impact 80% of the residents in a nursing home are suffering from incontinence, plus the staff, with recommendation that saves time and improve outcome. At TENA, we are in development mode of a bladder sensor, a wearable bladder sensor. And that's, you could say, also truly preventive, because the idea of a wearable bladder sensor is that we measure not the wetness in a product, but the amount of urine in the bladder. And for some indications, spinal cord injuries and some other indications of incontinence, we are actually able to tell when they need to go to the toilet before they use a product. I believe that this solution has a great potential to reduce the carbon footprint by using the optimal products in the optimal time, and in some cases even reduce the need of an absorbent product, for example with the wearable bladder sensor that we are developing. It will be more important with prevention. It will be more important to preserve wellness. I also believe that it will be a larger degree of co-creation here. If we roll back several years, a company provides a solution from A to B, but now we see it's more of an ecosystem or a network where the customer or the consumer is a part of it. It increases the relevance. We know that incontinence is a big challenge for caregiving relatives and professional caregivers, but they're also dealing with dementia, they're also dealing with nutrition, etc. So the question to us is, where do we have those partnerships and how can we be the relevant partner to our customers and consumers?